Hello, I'm Nick, and welcome to my little TED Talk on how we could finance a world-class Hurricane Beryl reconstruction effort. How could we take the best ideas, best knowledge around the world to create this one Caribbean, one UN, one humanity response for the small area of 25,000 people, 50,000 people that were affected, with the focus first on the islands that were heaviest hit. How do we raise the money? How do we do it right? So let's first look at all the areas of where there is capital available for this response. Let's look at the insurance companies first. How much damage was caused that was insured? Look at all the boats. From the videos I've seen helping out with Operations Cruisers Aid, thousands of damaged boats, huge expensive yachts down to small fishing vessels. How many boats have been sunk? What type of environmental recovery is going to need to happen for that? How many hotels are going to need to be rebuilt? So you got insurance money that's coming in. You've got all the grants and international funding that's coming in from large organizations, from the UN, from Red Cross, from the large INGOs like Samaritan's Purse, GSD, and others. You have the large donors like IDB and CDB and World Bank, all with long-term interests in the region. You have venture capitalists who are primarily out to make money, but there is a lot of money to be made in the change to the world industry. So let's not neglect that there is opportunity for some to profit, because that's the world that we operate in. But let's look at a subset of capitalism, which is the impact investors, the people that want to invest in a more sustainable world. And there's a lot of them. I started my career after university on Wall Street starting as an entry level, but then as director of research for Innovate Strategic Value Advisors, which was the #1 firm in the world for ESG analytics back then. And then I became the global head of sustainability analytics for Riskmetrics, the largest risk management firm in the world, that became, through acquisition, the 800-pound gorilla of ESG analytics, of sustainability analytics. And that was 15 years ago. And I've learned well more since then. So I understand how, from a financial point of view, we do good governance. Because it used to be my job to manage the data on more than 67,000 companies and their exposure to different business activities, to human rights violations. I knew every single bad thing that any time a company anywhere in the world did something bad, RepRisk, an amazing tool, picked it up. Between the work at Riskmetrics, now MSCI, and RepRisk, we had just an amazing perspective on literally all the ESG risks and opportunities and sustainability factors that were out there. So anyway, that's where I started my career. So the impact investment world has grown massively since then because of initiatives like the UN Global Compact, Principles of Responsible Investment, the GRI, and so many others. So you got the impact investment community. You've got NGOs, small foundations. You got local community organizations. You got private sector, the most important of which are the big conglomerates that have logistics operations. They have not just the ability to donate money in kind, but they have people and manpower and equipment. And so large conglomerates like Dart Enterprises, Macy's, Ansa McCall. You know the names better than I do. All of them have an opportunity to play a part in this. So, one of the first days I spoke to someone from WFP, one of the first assessment teams in, and they literally told me that this could be an $800 billion effort. $800 million effort for the rebuilding. And I was shocked because this is only, 7 islands severely damaged and a few others slightly more affected, but many of them are private islands. So the private islands kind of have the wealthy millionaires and billionaires that we expect to be able to restore those islands. A separate conversation. So you got this just massive amount of money, but let's pool it and spend it efficiently. instead of 30 different organizations trying to figure out how to get groceries to the island every week, let's organize a twice a week or once a week a boat from Guyana or Trinidad out with agriculture, with food, fresh produce over the next 6 months, year, until we can get those islands back to full self-sufficiency. Let's be efficient. Let's collaborate. It's not saying that there can't be the small activities, because in fact, those small activities, those organic activities, have the most impact. But let's stimulate those activities very targeted, and let's do it right and at scale. So let's put together a risk capital pool that we can innovate with. Let's also put together an investment pool so we can do microfinance at scale in the region to those that are affected and those that are not, to stimulate the economy and stimulate development. So risk capital. Let's touch on that for a second. Risk capital is the kind of NGO charity version of a seed investment. It's the venture capital for a social good venture that can be risked. It is designed to be scaled. So that risk capital doesn't necessarily go to a pilot project, or maybe it does, but it primarily goes to setting up legal structures, setting up teams, setting up the infrastructure to be able to do something. And the goal of it is then to 20x and 200x the risk capital pool, so that you can do larger scale operations. And I'm going to link to a video from 10 years ago that describes this very articulately. There's a brilliant TED talk about how charities don't work and why they don't work. But he says it well, so I won't cover that. But let's do other things really well with this response. So let's pool capital. Let's separate the staff costs for this team of 300 that I proposed. 300 mainly from the Caribbean, 50 each from the two main nations that were affected, 100 people, 3 each from all the Caribbean nations, so we've got that buy-in and one Caribbean feel, and then 100 people from the rest of the world, maybe 50 from the global north, 50 from the global south, maybe max of 2 per country. We do an application process over the next 2 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, once we've got the permission structure and organization and legality to begin with this program properly. So yeah, we have that risk capital pool. Let's start, just for this project, I propose only $50,000. That's all I think we need to start with, so that I can get the legal stuff, the advisory board, the business plan, everything organized, everyone on the same page. And let's go with a lot of communication. We could do daily briefing, daily AMAs, weekly, twice weekly, conversations, board meetings, one-on-one calls, and we can make all of this that we're planning open source, share it to the whole world, crowdsource the world's best ideas from the Caribbean, the best talent, the best volunteers, the best trainers, the best authors, the best academics, the best researchers, the best pilot programs that have been run elsewhere in the world that we can scale. Let's take all that innovation from out there that hasn't got to the Caribbean, and let's bring it to the Caribbean all at once in a holistic way. I'll give you a couple of perfect examples of amazing innovations that are perfect for the Caribbean. Zipline out of Rwanda, autonomous drones for medical delivery. Freaking amazing organizations. They've done great things. Let's scale them to the 30 plus nations of the Caribbean, so that we have a network of drones all across the region that in normal times is able to deliver medical supplies and blood and defibrillators and oxygen and other things that are required in potentially emergency situations, whether to the island chain or to the boaters, to the fishermen or the yachts, to the cruises that are in the region. So zipline, and then in a disaster situation, that same network could be redeployed to be dropping off relief supplies, as soon as a storm passed, or in the case of an earthquake, within hours, there could be drones dropping off emergency relief supplies. And we can get into the ideas of how a best case response looks like, but that's separate. We're talking about financing. Let's make everything open source. So let's make our plans open source. Let's make our contracting open source, our bidding process open source. Let's make all of our expenses open source, whether we use a platform like Expensify or we use a blockchain innovation of some sort. Let's use collaborative decision making in some way. Like let's give the three, simple idea. Let's make it small. Let's make sure that the 300 participants in this program have the ability to vote directly on the priorities of the organization and how money are spent, that they can approve policies, that they can do direct democracy within the 300 person organization. And then let's figure out how to scale those ideas so that we could do direct democracy and crowdsourced collaboration in an open source environment at larger scale with a 30,000 person online network or a 1 million person network of people around the world in person. But that's scale. Let's get together that risk pool and let's get together that investment pool. So let's talk about microfinance and how we can do it right. Everyone in the region we can give out a digital ID to so that we can track all the aid and assistance and all the programs, that we can have one assessment for each family and we can see the data on how they progress, how their income changes, their needs change, their housing changes over time. And let's help each family start some sort of livelihood, income generation, small business, backyard farm, whether it's massage therapy or setting up a nursery school or primary school, setting up a small chicken farm, a yogurt making business. There's just so many opportunities where we can give out $500, $5,000, $50,000 in a microfinance fashion to so many of the families in the affected areas and to people from outside who've got brilliant ideas that fit into what the communities want for themselves. And we just spread that money out, and we can do it either in debt and loans and microfinance so that when the money comes back in, we can reloan it, or we could give it out in equity. And we can, and this organization, this fund, this sovereign wealth fund of sorts, could invest 10% into hotels, into logistics companies, into salvage companies, into farms, into marinas, into all sorts of things, taking 10% in those investments, and thus this organization has becomes a universal owner of the community, and just as it makes money from these investments, it keeps putting more money into the community. So let's see if we could get a $100 million pot together. So these are some of the ideas. We can get further. We can get into token issuance. We could get into the challenges of the Caribbean nations being able to do business with each other because of the currency challenges, currency liquidity, foreign exchange. There's so many opportunities for a digital network of transactions, because getting money into the Caribbean and getting money out of the Caribbean and moving money between the Caribbean nations is very challenging for the average person and for large businesses. So there's a lot of innovation there. We can talk more about scaling, we can talk more about governance, but let me wrap it up with the call to action. We need the right people and organizations around this idea. We need that first 50K of risk capital, and then we need to start getting additional capital ready. So, if we say that 300 people at $2,000 a month plus their food, transportation, expenses, equipment, training, etc. That's say $600,000 a month for straight salaries. Let's add food, accommodations, transportation, call it $800,000 a month. And let's say $3 million for base camp union and physical training sites and projectors and laptops. And you're looking maybe a $15 million all-in project to manage all the $100 millions of dollars that are coming into this response effort, and then scale the learnings out from there. That's the idea, but it'll take the brilliant people that you guys, whoever watches this video, to come on board. It'll take the governments especially to say, yes, Nick, we like your ideas, let's figure out how to make them happen. It'll take CARICOM to support these ideas, IDB, CDB. We need to build the biggest tent possible to really help the people. So thank you for listening. If you're interested in supporting us, we'll have a form. If you want to talk to me, I'll have a Calendly set up so you can set up a meeting with me. I'll have a GoFundMe set up so that we can raise that first 50 grand, whether from one person or many. And think about how you can help. Think about how you can make these ideas better. My wife keeps telling me to talk less, and this has already been 15 minutes. So happy wife, happy life. I've learned to listen to my wife, and I'll end here. And I'm gonna have to do other videos and future videos to share more of my ideas and also more of the wisdom that comes into me from everyone that I talk to about how we can make this better. So this is really your project. I'm simply your servant. Thank you for listening.